All right. Okay. Good morning, guys. Let me know if you can hear me, see a screen. Yes. No. Yeah. Right. Perfect. Because I'll have my video off today because I'm not really feeling well. So we'll start with unit number 9 and 10. Okay, that is international trade and foreign finance. So maybe until the others also start in, right? Others also join. I'll give you like a small brief of what and what is there in this unit and what kind of questions you all will get. Okay. So how this unit was structured is if you look at the previous syllabus, okay, the syllabus before 2019, that is 2018 and before, okay, unit number 9 and 10, right, this was one unit, okay. So the entire unit was one big unit with international trade, foreign finance, that is the exchange rates, EOP, right, everything was there together. But from 2019 onwards, okay, what they did is they split this unit into two. That is how you have two units now. So earlier you did not have two units, you only had one unit. But even though they split the unit into two, right, in the new syllabus, the essay question that you get in your paper, so far, they have still only stick to one essay question. Now, the previous papers, that is 2018 and before, anyway, there was only one unit. So if there was one unit, they anyway gave only one essay question. But from 2019 onwards, even though they split the unit into two, right, made two units out of this, they still continued to only test one question. So in your essay question, right, in your paper, okay, from 2011 all the way to 2020, they're talking about, okay, my voice is not clear, yes, no, is it lagging? My connection has been a little bad recently. Can you hear me clearly? No? Is there issues with my audio? Okay, if it gets really bad, let me know. I have another earphone also. I don't know if I. Right. I'm using a different earphone. I'll see if because I need to go to the other room to get it. If it gets really bad, let me know. I'll maybe change my thing. Okay. Right. So just to repeat once again. Okay. So what type of question you all get in your A-level paper essay questions? Your question number 8. Right, your question number 8 is from these two units. Now you all might wonder, the general thing, right? Why should I study two units just to do one question? That is what we all think, no, right? Now other units, I can simply study one unit and answer 120-mark question. But here I need to study two units to answer just one question. But yes, that is a little hard, right? Yes, you have to study two units to do one question. But the good side of it is, since there is two units to question just one, right? Two units and there is just one question, they don't test the in-depth stuff, right? They don't go now in this unit, you will, there are very in-depth concepts, right? But what they do is they don't test that. Now just go and check the 2020, maybe the 2019 papers, right? They test the basic areas, right? They give you a simple comparative advantage, absolute advantage question, right? They ask about exchange rate system. They give you a small, maybe a BOP related question, right? So all the questions that they give is very basic, even though the unit is huge. So because of that, they have a lot of questions that they can ask. So they always, what they do is they give you a very basic questions. Now, once you all do the essay questions, you all will realize that. We'll start off with the MCQ. So MCQs also, you'll get somewhere around 5 MCQs, I will say. Okay, so every paper, there's around 5 MCQs. So 5 MCQs is 10 marks and one essay question, that is 20 marks. So in total, for these two units, 9 and 10, you'll get somewhere around 30 marks. Right? Then is in your part B, right? I'll just let you all know, since you all have some time now, right? Since A levels has been pushed and you all do have some extra time, okay? In your part B, okay, your second paper part B that comes from the grade 13 syllabus, question 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, I would recommend minimum go prepared for 3 questions, guys. Now some of you all might have just studied 2 questions, right? For 2 questions because A levels maybe was in November, but now it has been postponed. You have some time, right? If you really take it, guys, within 1 week, Okay, if you can put in your proper effort, within 1 week you can completely study one unit. You can study that, do the papers, do everything. So what I would recommend you all is to go prepared. Now, what you all don't realize is, given that there is more time now, right? Every other student is studying, right? They are making use of that time. If you are not going to do that, that means you're falling behind. I'm not saying that you need to beat the other person, right? But there are people making use of this time wisely, right? But on your end, if you think, if you're going to stick to the same strategy that you were, uh, you know, that you had to face the exams in November, I think you're doing something wrong there, right? So fast track people, I think we'll talk about the strategy that you all can follow maybe tonight, right? So remember, guys, in general context, now, so far, all of you all studied for an exam in November. Now, you all do have 2 extra months, right? Maybe, I think they say the exam will happen somewhere around in the first quarter of 2022. So that's somewhere around in January. Let's say the exam happens in January. So that means you have 2 extra months, right? I don't know the exact date, but let's say it happens in January. You have 2 extra months. So if you're not going to change your strategy of studying, or where you're going to look at, right, you will be falling behind, because other people will be making use of this time. Okay, and what you all don't realize is, if you're looking at local university entrances and all of that, it's your Z score, right? It's not how many marks you get. Okay, now if everyone in the country gets A's, right, your Z score will be really, really low, because your Z score to everything is based on how well you do compared to the average person. So don't think of just settling for a 75 and stopping that, or really looking at a local university and all of that. So what you really need to do is push your boundaries, right? You do have some 2 months, guys. 2 months is a lot of days, right? You have 60 extra days. 60 days, just think of the work that you could do. You study, let's say, 5-6 hours a day. That's how many? 60 multiplied by 6, that's around 300 study hours per unit. You can finish in, let's say, 5-6 hours even, if you properly study. So how much of time you all have, right? You all can obviously 24 hours a day. Let's say you sleep for 8 hours, you do this thing, at least for 8-9 hours a day. Also, you could study if you really want to. So you all do have a lot of time. Make use of it, guys. Right? Classes are not really considered as studying, right? On your study time, have your own time. Don't consider, now I do understand, like, some days, whole day there are classes, right? So you can't really study on those days. So make sure that study time is your alone study time, not you doing homework, or not you going for a class. Now, these 2 hours that you all come in the morning, this can't be considered your study time. This is a class, right? You all are coming to this class to learn something. So maybe after this class, right, maybe go through the questions again, see where you all went wrong, open the unit, try to find out what are the areas that has been tested. Now that could be your study time. Your study time has to come alone by yourself, not someone forcing you to do something. So change your strategy, make a kind of a plan on what exactly you all are going to do. Because if you are not going to do that, right, there are people right now, they might be behind you all, right? But if they can turn things around, at the end of the day, they'll be much more better than you all at the end of the 2 months. I'm not saying it's a competition, but if you are looking at a government university and all of that, there is some level of competition, right? So I've known friends who missed Z scores by very small amount and who couldn't get in. Okay, so make sure that you all don't face that. At the end of the day, give it your best shot so that there is no regrets. Okay, given said that, any questions before we start? Yes, guys. Unit number 8 I'll upload when I find some time. It was your responsibility to come to class. I'm a little busy right now these days. Once I find some time, I will upload unit number 8. Okay. Okay. So we'll start off from unit number 9 and 10. Okay. So 2011, guys, did you all try the questions out? No. So I had a week's break also. I did not do classes last week because I was out of Colombo. Did not do. No. Okay. So this is the 2011 A-level question. Okay. So we'll start off with this. Now, this is a common question that they give you every single year. Okay, they either give you this from a table or they give you this in the form of a graph. Okay, so I'll explain this question, right? For the very first time, I will take a little bit time to explain the thing, but then going forward, every single year this question comes, I will not be taking time to do all of that. So what they do, okay, in every single year, if you notice, they give you a question, right? They give you a question on comparative advantage and absolute advantage. Okay, they give you some numbers. That numbers can come in a table. Now, if you look at 2012, see the same numbers they gave it in the form of a table, right? In input data. The in 2011, the same numbers they gave output data in the form of a graph. So at the end of the day, whether they give you input data, output data, whether they give it to you in a graph, whether they give it to you in a table, you should be able to read it. And you should be able to, from those numbers, you should be able to figure out, right, who has the absolute advantage, who has the comparative advantage. But I'm guessing you all know what absolute and comparative advantage is. I'm not going to go into that level, right? But I'll teach you how to handle a sum like this. So when you get a question like this, the first thing that you need to figure out is, have they given you, okay, have they given you input data or have they given you output data? You need to figure that out first, because if you can't figure that out, then there is a problem, right? So if they give you a question like this, guys, they say that the diagram shows the amounts of rice and clothing that can be produced in countries X and Y with a given quantity of resources. What kind of data have they given in this question? Is it output data or is it input data? Have they given you the number of inputs or the number of output that the country can produce? What type of data have they given you? Input is like the labor hours. Output is the number of units that they can produce. They've given you output data. You don't even have to think in this question, right? Because if they give you a PPC, right? PPCs are always drawn using output data, guys. You never draw a PPC using input data. So now here it's obviously output data. Now, if you look at this one, tell me this in the 2012 question, what happens here? The table below indicates the number of labor hours required in countries X and Y to produce 1 unit of food and 1 unit of clothing. What have they given you here? Input or output? Here it's input data, right? They're talking about labor hours, not the amount of output. So that is the first thing that you have to figure out, right? No matter what question you all get now, even I think in 2013 also there will be one. Yep. This is a 2013 one. Okay, same question, but they ask different things. Now here, the table below shows the number of goods X and Y which the two countries can produce. What is this? Output or input? This is output data, right? So likewise, that is the first step that you need to do, right? When you get this question, you first need to realize, okay, is this output data or is this input data? Okay, that's the first step. Once that is done, right? Because your calculation differs a little, right? Based whether it's output or input, your calculation differs a little. So now, given that you have realized, I'll come to the input data calculation when we come to input data, right? Give me a second. Okay. Okay. So if you look at this question, okay, they've given you output data and they have given you some stuff, and they're asking you to find out who has the comparative advantage, who has the absolute advantage. Is how are we going to find these things? How are we going to find it? First of all, okay, if you're going to find, okay, so do you all want me to convert this into a table if you all are more familiar with that, right? So I can say country X, okay, and country Y, okay, and you have two goods, that is cloth, right, and then you have rice, right? Those are the two goods that this country has. So let's convert this table into the graph into a table first. Maybe if you can't really handle the graph, so read these graphs, right? If you read the PPC for country X, if they use all of their resources, they can produce 200 units of cloth. Or else, if they don't produce any cloth, then they can produce 400 units of rice. So if you go to country X, 200 cloth, or else 400 rice. That is how it looks for country X. Then if you look for country Y, they can either produce 100 units of cloth or 2000 units of rice, right? So 100 units of cloth or 2000 units of rice. So in this context, how do we find absolute advantage, right? Absolute advantage. Based on output data, absolute advantage is whichever country that can produce more, right? Okay, output data, absolute advantage, whichever country that can produce more units. So if you compare, right, take cloth, right, take the good, who can produce more cloth? Country X produces 200, country Y produces 100. So who has the absolute advantage? Or in other words, who produces more efficiently, right? Who can produce more? It's country X, right? So if you take cloth as a product, you can say it's country X. Why? With the same amount of input, they can produce much more. Okay, remember, output data, whoever who can produce more. Then take rice. Look at this and tell me. Okay, country X can produce 400, country Y can produce 2000. So it's country Y. Okay, now remember, guys, okay, in absolute advantage, one country can have the absolute advantage for both the goods also. Now, in our context, it's nicely split, right? Country X has for cloth, country Y has for rice. But there are situations where one country can have for both, right? One country can have the absolute advantage for both the things. So remember that, okay? Don't just because country X has for cloth, don't go and say country Y has for rice. Please check that as well. That's absolute advantage. Then we'll get into comparative advantage. Okay, so how do you find comparative advantage? Comparative advantage means whichever country who can produce at a lower opportunity cost, right? Who can produce the good at a lower opportunity cost. So before you find out comparative advantage, you first have to find out the opportunity cost. Now, how do we find out opportunity cost, guys? What is the equation or whatever? What do we do to find opportunity cost? Opportunity cost is simply your foregone units, right? Your foregone units divided by your gained. Now, what is this nonsense? Foregone divided by gain. Yeah, whatever that you forego over whatever that you gain, right? Your sacrificed amount divided by whatever that you gain. So we'll okay, I'll put this over here. Okay, right. We'll look at these numbers. Hold on. Okay. Now we'll look at these numbers. Now look at country X. Okay, country X. Okay, we are going to find out the opportunity cost of country X of producing cloth. So to gain 200 cloth, can you tell me how much of rice should country X sacrifice? To gain 200 cloth, how much of rice should country X sacrifice? 400, right? So to gain 200 cloth, if they are to produce 200 cloth, they have to give up this 400 units of rice. So our equation is 400 divided by 100. Guys, read the graph, right? Don't always think, you know, I only go the horizontal side, I only go the vertical side. No. So here, it's a 400 divided by 100. Sorry, not 100, 200, right? So to get for 200 units, to gain 200 units of cloth, right, they have to forego or they have to sacrifice this much amount of rice, because if you get 200 cloth, you can't produce the 400 rice. So it's 400 divided by 200. How much do you get? Their opportunity cost of producing 1 unit of cloth is how much? In very simple terms, it's 2 units of rice, guys. So the opportunity cost of country X to produce 1 unit of cloth is 2 units of rice. So they have to sacrifice 2 units of rice. Is that clear? Yes, no? Basic comparative advantage thing. Okay, right. Then look at rice. Then think of the same country. Let's think of rice in this context, right? To gain 400 rice, they have to give up 200 cloth, right? So if they give up 200 cloth, they can get 400 rice. So how much is the opportunity cost here? It's 0.5 cloth, right? So that's how you find that basic thing. As I'm hoping by now you all know how to do that calculation, right? Let's do that's that. So now you have found out for country X. You do the same thing for country Y now, right? Okay, take country Y. Please give me numbers. What divided by what for country Y now? To get 100 cloth, they have to give up 2000 rice. So it's what divided by what? Exactly. It's a 2000 divided by 100, right? 2000 divided by 100, you get how much? You get 20. So 20 units of rice. Their opportunity cost is 20 units of rice. Now take the other country, take the same country, the other good. To produce 2000 units of rice, they have to sacrifice 100 units of cloth. So it's 100 divided by a 2000. How much do we get here? 0.05 cloth. Right. Now, once you have found that case, all what you have to do is now you have to compare and see. Look at cloth. The opportunity cost in country X, or in other words, what they have to give up. In country X, the opportunity cost is 2 units of rice. In country Y, it is 20 units of rice. Whom do you think has the higher opportunity cost? Okay, forget about the higher. Who has the lower opportunity cost? They have the comparative advantage. Who has the lower opportunity cost? Who is giving up less? It's country X, right? So country X is only giving up 2 units of rice. So they have the comparative advantage. So that's how you find out, right? So in this context, if you look at country X, they have the lower opportunity cost. Then if you look at rice, who has the lower opportunity cost, guys? Country X or country Y? Country Y. Okay. Yes, remember comparative advantage is always, right? If one country has the comparative advantage for one good, for sure the other country will have the comparative advantage for the other good. There can be situations where no country has the comparative advantage, right? Where both countries have the same opportunity cost. That can be one situation, but the usual context is always if one country has the comparative advantage for one good, right? Definitely the other country will have the comparative advantage for the other good, right? Because in some questions, they don't give you information about a lot of things, right? Sometimes they can only give you information about country X, right? But in the answer, they talk about country Y. Now you will wonder, I only have information for country X. I only can find comparative advantage for country X. How do I know for country Y? So that is where you use your brains. If country X has the comparative advantage for this good, automatically country Y has the comparative advantage for the other good. So even without calculating, even without getting data for country Y, right, you should be able to tell that. That is tested sometimes in few MCQs. We'll see if we can find a question going forward. So now we have that also. Okay, guys, since it's the very first question, I'm taking time. Okay, I will not take this much time for these questions. These are very basic questions. Okay, right. So tell me comparative advantage. If you look at it, cloth, you had whom? Country X. Yeah. For rice, you had country Y. Okay. So now this is all the information that you need, guys. Once you have all of this information, right, all what you have to do is now go and read the answers and see. Right. Let's read the answers and see which one is the correct one. Okay. Okay. Country X has both an absolute advantage and comparative advantage in clothing. True or false? Country X has the absolute advantage in clothing and the comparative advantage in clothing. Yes, now all what you do is you read your results. Now you have done all the calculations, you've done everything. Just see if this is correct or wrong. Yes, right? They do have the absolute advantage and the comparative advantage. That is correct. So we'll see, we'll look at the other answers also. Country X has the comparative advantage in rice. Comparative advantage in rice is in country Y. Wrong. Right? So I'm going to cut that off. Country X has the comparative advantage in clothing. Okay. And the absolute advantage in rice. Now that part is wrong. Right? They don't have the absolute advantage in rice. That's wrong. Country Y has a comparative advantage in rice. Country Y, comparative in rice. Fine. And absolute advantage in clothing. No. Again, that part is wrong. Right? Country Y has both an absolute advantage and comparative advantage in clothing. No, no. In clothing, it's country X. That is wrong. So once you have made this, right? Once you have calculated absolute advantage, comparative advantage, it's simply a matter of what? It's simply a matter of finding the correct answer. So That's how you get that answer. This is a very common question. Right? Every single year they get a question like this, right? They can either give you the data using a input data, or they can either give you output data, or they can give you a table, or they can give you a PPC. You should be able to figure that out, and you should be able to do it faster, right? You can't be taking right this much of time. Both had 0.05, not 0.05, at 0.5 and 0.05. So this is not the same. I'm hoping you know your decimals. 0.5 and 0.05 does not mean the same thing. If you get that wrong, then that's fine. But if you think that both of these are the same, then there is a problem. Okay. Right. Are we okay with that? Question 38. Yes. Okay. Now this type of question will be repeated every single year. You said that one country has the absolute one good, that it has to have the competitive one another good. No, I never said something like that. I said if one country has the comparative advantage for one good, the other country will have the comparative advantage for the other good. I did not mix comparative and absolute. Please don't come up with new theories, right? So I'm telling you, if country X has the comparative advantage for cloth, automatically country Y will have the comparative advantage for price, not absolute advantage. Absolute advantage both countries might have, only one country might have, right? That you can't say. That you have to calculate itself and see there is no pattern, no something, right? Okay, that's this. So I'm not going to go into detail on all the other questions that will come in the future. Okay, right. There was a question on when I will upload unit number 8. Whenever that I get free, I will upload unit number 8. Okay, so these days I'm a little bit caught up with different lot of things. Today also until at a stretch until my fast track classes finishes at 11, I have work, so I don't think I will find the time. Whenever I find the time, I'll look into it and I'll upload it on your end to make sure that you're there in class. Okay, right. Question 39, guys. What do you all think the answer this one? This is a pure theory one. The multilateral financial institute, which has offered highest volume of foreign grants to Sri Lanka. Now, this is not very applicable to the 2021 context, right? This is in 2011. This is 10 years before. So it could have changed compared to what is there now. I can't remember the exact thing that is there now, right? So we can check the central bank report and find an answer. But if I'm not mistaken, Asian Development, International Bank for Reconstruction, no. International Development Association, EXMI. I think it's Asian Development Bank. Can someone check and answer what the past paper says 10 years before? I'm not 100% sure on what exactly the thing is, right? Should be Asian Development Bank. Okay. So then now, guys, now these type of questions, there is no point really studying these questions, right? Because these questions, this is what has happened 10 years ago, right? So they will not expect you to this, right? But you can go through the central bank report, see which is it. But recently, I don't think we have got much foreign grants though, right? We have got loans, but our grants is not less because now we are a little bit developed country. I'm not saying a developed, but we are a bit like in the upper middle income, the boundaries in the lower middle, right? So in that context, we don't get much of foreign grants now. But maybe in 2011, we were a little bit of a poor country just after the war, right? Then yes, we would have got grants. So I don't think this kind of question would show up in your paper. So don't worry. That's 39. Then, okay, question number 40. Okay, this is another type of question that always comes, just like that comparative advantage question, the price index question. Give me a second. Okay, now here also, it's a very simple question though, right? But a lot of people actually get this wrong. They mess it up. Should we follow the 2020 or 2019? Ideally both, right? So no both case. I do have some extra time, so go through both the central bank reports. Okay. Okay. Consider the following table. They have given us export price index. They have given us terms of trade index, and they are asking you what is happening. This is a very simple question, right? It's a very common question that they ask every year. So you need to know your terms of trade is equal to your export price index, right? Divided by your import price. What is this export price and import price index? This means the weighted average you receive. Remember in unit number 7, when we study inflation, we study something called price indices, right? Based on National Consumer Price Index, Colombo Consumer Price Index, you find like an average value. Yeah, that is exact same thing that they do here, but not for all the prices, for your exports and imports. So in simple terms, remember, right? Export price index means the average price you get for 1 unit of export, right? So let's say the country is exporting 1,000 different things. For 1 unit of it, what is the average price? So import price index also means the same thing. You might import 1,000 different goods, but import price index means what is the average price of 1 unit of input. It's not the simple average, yeah, it's a weighted average, but simple, remember, it's an average. In that context, then, right, we'll look at this question. In this year, right, year 1, 2, 3, and 1 and 2 and 3, okay, the export price index is falling. Okay, this has to be multiplied by 100 also, okay, to get a proper value. Okay, so multiplied by 100. Okay, in all of these years, the okay, all of these years, what is happening? The export price index is falling. This, okay, I can prove it to you with numbers also, but I don't think we're going to go to that extent, right? The export price index is falling. Okay, see, 100, 90, 80. The terms of trade is falling. Can you tell me by a greater proportion or by a lower proportion compared to the export price index? The terms of trade. This is going 190, 80. This is going 180, 60. It's falling by a greater proportion. It's falling a lot. So what do you think would have been the reason, guys? Right? Look at the equation itself. This numerator is falling, but this answer is falling even more. What can you tell about the denominator or the import price index? These basic maths, just think, what can you say? You can say that this has been rising, no? This has been rising. This has been falling, but for this to fall even more, that means your import price index has been rising. Guys, you all can put the numbers and calculate also and see. For all of these, right? For all of these year 1, 2, and 3, right? You have the export price index, you have the TOT, you can put it to the calculation and you can find the import price index for all 3 years. I'm not going to go to that extent, right? Simply from the equation, you can figure out. So now based on this, tell me what answer can you get, guys? It's a very simple question. If you know the equation, if you know how the equation works, you can come up with an answer. Okay, the first one says export prices were rising. Was it rising? No. Your export prices are shown by the export price index, guys. It was going down. So this is gone, right? Import prices were rising. Yes. Import price index is going up here. We found that out. So that could be the answer. We look at the other ones. Both export and import prices were falling. No, no. Export prices were falling. Import prices were increasing. No. There was an improvement in the terms of trade. Terms of trade is going 180 and 60. Right? Improvement means TOT has to increase. Here TOT is decreasing terms of trade. So not an improvement, right? It's going worse. More imports could be purchased with the same quantity of export. What do you think? Your amount of money you're getting from your exports is falling. Imports are becoming expensive. Can you buy more imports now from 1 unit of export? No, no. From where 1 unit of export. Now your export is only, let's say, 50 rupees. Okay, I'll just give numbers here, right? So let's assume, right, your export price, right? Export and import. I'll just give you prices, right? So let's say export price is 100 rupees. Your import is 50 rupees. So from 1 unit of export, how much of imports can you buy? From 1 unit of export, how much units of imports can you buy? You can buy 2 imports. No? One export is 100 rupees. One import is 50 rupees. So if you export one good, you can import 2 goods, right? Then think of this situation. Now, in this context, what is happening is the export prices are falling, import prices are increasing. Now, let's say after 2 years, export price became only 50. It fell, right? But the import prices increased. Now, from 1 unit of export, how much units can you import? From 1 unit of export, how much units can you import? Export is 50 rupees, import is 100 rupees. 0.5, right? Or in other words, half. You can only import half a thing. So in this context, what are they saying, guys? Now this is what has happened in this year 1, 2, and 3. This is what has happened. So more imports could be purchased? No. When your export price index fall and import price index increase, you can only buy less imports. Earlier, you could buy 2 imports, but now you can only buy 0.5 imports. So the amount of imports that you can buy, what has happened? It has kind of for not increased, right? So that is why you can't say more imports is wrong. That answer is also cut off. Shape, yes. Are we okay with question 40? The answer is number 2, guys. Okay, done. So moving on to the next one. Okay, question 41. This is from unit number 10, right? From your balance of payment. So here they are saying, which of the following data relates to the balance? Okay, the following data relates to the balance of payment of a country. They have given deficit of visible trade, surplus on trade and services, net private current transfer, net outflow of interest, profits, and dividends, direct investments overseas by local residents. What was the country's current account balance? How do you find the current account balance? What are the components that comes into the current account? If you look at a current account balance, okay, you have your visible trade, right? That is your goods. Then you have your invisible trade, right? That is your that is your services. So visible trade and invisible trade together, you get your goods and services, right? And then you have your net primary income, that is dividends, interest, profit, all of that, right? Then you have your net secondary income, that is all of your current transfers, all of that. So when you add all of this, you get your current account balance. So in this context, let's look at the numbers that they have given us. Okay, visible trade. Okay, deficit on visible trade. You said we will discuss only the 9th chapter MCQs. I never said that. You said that we will be doing 9 and 10 together, right? By any chance, did I say only 9? I think I clearly said that 9 and 10 last class, that we will do it together. Yeah. Stay focused on class. Okay. Right. Okay. So in this context, okay, and even at the very beginning of the class, I told, right? Just as we started, I said I'm doing 9 and 10 together. Okay. Deficit on visible trade, guys. How much is our deficit on visible trade? They're saying it's a minus 40. Okay. Done. Invisible trade. Okay. Invisible trade means your services. They're saying surplus on this thing. So it's a plus 20. Net current transfer, okay, that's your net secondary income. That is how much? 8. Net outflow of interest, profit, and dividend. 10. Is that correct? Yes or no? Are my numbers correct? Is it correct or have I made a mistake somewhere? Exactly. This 10 has to be a minus, right? Can you see that now? See, they have been very smart here, right? They have not said deficit or something, but have you seen? They have said net outflow. That means more money is going out, right? So that is why the number here, it should not be a plus 10, it has to be a minus. Now, these are small things that you will not notice sometimes. Now, deficit, okay, fine, minus 4. Surplus 20, fine. Net private transfer, no, they have not said outflow, no. That's a positive number, fine. Net outflow of interest, profit, dividends, that means it's a minus. And then direct investment, that doesn't come in your current account. That goes on to your financial account for indirect investment. So direct investments will not come into your current account. So that is just given to confuse you, to see if you are actually taking that number, right? So how much do we get, guys? At this, see how much do we get? minus 40 minus 10 plus 20 plus 8. You get a minus 22 billion. Yeah, okay. So that has to be your answer. So you get a minus 22 billion. So your answer has to be a deficit of 22 billion. Is that okay? Yeah. So you end up with answer number 4. Okay, right. That's 41. Okay, there's 42 now. That's also an interesting question. Okay. Question number 42. In 42, they're saying, okay, they're talking of, okay, the value of the Sri Lankan rupee. You know, these are also very interesting questions, right? The value of the Sri Lankan rupee changes against the US dollar from 112 to 108. Which of the following statements is consistent with this information? Consistent means which of the following is correct? Hey, first of all, can you all tell me what has happened to the Sri Lankan rupee? Has it appreciated or depreciated? 112 has gone to 208, right? The value of one US dollar in terms of Sri Lankan rupees, right? Right? It has gone from, it has depreciated, right? Your currency has depreciated. Yes, remember, your Sri Lankan rupee value increasing means it's a depreciation, not appreciation. So what has happened to the US dollar? US dollar has appreciated. Okay, so two sides of the story. US dollar has appreciated, Sri Lankan rupee has depreciated. First, just remember that. You will find that out. Then think of this. Okay, which of the following statements is correct? Sri Lankan exports to USA will now become cheap. The value of Sri Lankan rupee against US dollar. In my paper, okay, this is 108. Guys, can you all tell me the number? Is this 208? I know for my paper, because 208 looks a little weird for me also. That's a big appreciation. It's 108. Okay, so then some mistake with my past paper. Sorry, guys. Okay, so this is the 108. Yeah? Make, in case your past paper says 208, make it 108. Okay, this is the 100. Okay, so then this changes. The Sri Lankan rupee has appreciated, right? So 112 has become 108, right? So appreciated, and then the US dollar has depreciated. Okay, so in that context, okay, make that correction, guys. In case your past paper says 100, 208, I don't think, I don't know why my past paper saying this. So this has to be 108. Okay, right. So then Sri Lankan exports to USA will now become cheap. What do you think? Yes or no? If the Sri Lankan rupee has appreciated, right, now our exports will also be expensive, no? Right? Earlier, the US guy from $1, he can buy 112 worth of goods, 112 rupees worth of goods. But now, from $1, he can only buy 108 worth of goods. So for him, it is more expensive now. So your exports have become more expensive. So it's wrong, right? Sri Lankan exports will now become cheap. No, it will become more expensive. Imports from USA will become expensive. Now, if you're buying something, let's say you're buying something worth $1. Earlier, you paid 112 rupees, right, to buy $1 worth of thing. But now, to buy that same $1 worth of thing, you're only paying 108. Has it become expensive or has it become cheaper for you? It has become cheaper for you, right? You're only paying 108 now. So, again, wrong. Then, Sri Lankan rupee has depreciated? No, the Sri Lankan rupee has appreciated. Right, 112 became 108. Sri Lankan rupee became much more stronger. So again, gone. US dollar has appreciated? No, the US dollar has depreciated. Wrong. Sri Lankans visiting the USA will now be better off? Yes. Why? Because our currency has appreciated now. So if they are traveling to USA, right, they have to only spend less money now, right? So if they are visiting USA, because our currency is very strong, not very strong, 112 has become 108, but because it has got strong, Now, let's say I have to go to USA and I have to spend $1,000. Earlier, I have to spend 1,000 into 112 in rupee terms. But now I have to spend 1,000 into 108. So it's better for me. For travelers, right? It's better, right? This is like an import. Like imports getting cheaper, but this is service. So Sri Lankans within USA will now be better. No, that's correct. Is that okay? 42. This is also a common question that you all get. This you need to think a little, guys. I didn't go into very basics of demand, supply, and all of that. Right? I'm hoping you all know the basics of the normal thing, and I continued from there. If you were completely blank, then this area would have been Greek. Yeah, it's 42. Done. Then we go into 43. Okay. The main driving forces of globalization process are. Guys, what is globalization? Globalization is where this entire thing is getting connected, then a lot of international trade, then all of that, where everything is getting combined, and all of that is what is globalization, where you have free trade, everyone is trading freely, right? All of that. So why do you think, what are the main reasons, or what are the reasons why there is globalization now? What are the reasons, guys? Technological advances and liberalization policies, bilateral trading agreements and the World Trade Organization, digital revolution and the internet, disintegration of production processes, foreign direct investment, reduction in shipping cost, and protectionist policies of developed countries. What do you think? The answer is one, right? Okay, I'll explain this in very simple terms. Hey, okay, technological advances, you all know, right? Everyone knows what is technological advance, where technology is developed. But what is liberalization policies? What does that mean? Anyone? What liberalization? Yes, liberalization means exactly, okay, based on the answers that you all have given me, right? It's where you remove the rules, regulations, where you like kind of deregulate, where you open the country for international trade, where you give some sort of freedom. That is liberalization, okay? Okay, so liberalization, sorry. Okay, so it's the you eliminate all the big rules, regulations, controls, right? So you liberalize an economy, right? Where you move into free trade, where you do that. So that is a driving force. That is what liberalization is. So in simple terms, if you all want to write down, what you all can say is where where you remove controls, open the country for trade, right? That is what liberalization is. So because of technological advances and because the governments have now gone into liberalization policies, right? They have loosened things, they have made it much more easier for international trade and all of it. What happens? There is globalization. Now, bilateral trade agreements and WTO, they are not really forces of globalization. Yes, they help in globalization, but not the forces force. Now, digital revolution, internet, half part of it is okay, but this is not the only thing, guys. Now, it's not just the internet that is the driving force, right? It's the transportation, it's everything, right? With the technology and everything. Disintegrated production process, no. Reduction in shipping costs, maybe that is fine, right? This is okay, but then not protectionist policies. This is going the other way around. If you put protectionism, there is no globalization, there is no free trade. So remember, that's 43 is number one. Now, you might not get the same question, but now most of these answers look right, okay? But they're asking for the main one. Now, all of these could be driving force. Now, for example, digital revolution, internet, yes, that is the driving force for globalization, right? Maybe bilateral trade agreements and the World Trade Organization getting involved, yes. But they are not asking you for which one, they're asking you for the main one. So that is why the question gets a little harder. So you need to find out from these which one is the most impactful one, which one makes the biggest difference. So in our context, 43 will be answer number 1. Okay, that is 43. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the 2011 paper. Got it correct? No, all the questions correct? No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, my board is a little gone for a 6. 12. No one with all 6 correct. Okay. Give me a second. I want to make it a little bigger. Hold on. Okay. 2012 A-level. Question number 36. Right? Okay. Then the following the table below indicates the number of labor hours required in countries X and Y to produce 1 unit of food and 1 unit of clothing. So what is this? This is labor hours. And they have given you country X and Y. They have given you food and clothing. And then they're asking you based on this comparative advantage and absolute advantage. Okay. Now they have given us labor hours. Yes, if it is labor hours, how do we find absolute advantage? Which country uses the lesser amount of labor, right? So whichever country who uses less amount of labor has the absolute advantage. So tell me, for food, who uses lesser amount of labor? Country X is using 20 hours, country Y is using 10 hours. Yes, here they have given us who is using lesser hours, guys. Guys, remember now they can change, the row and the column can change, right? In my previous example, the country was on the column axis, right? So read the table carefully. So who is producing, right, food with lesser labor hours? It's Y, right? Y is only taking 10 hours. Guys, read I'm getting so many answers with different things. For food, country X is taking 20 hours to produce. Country Y is taking 10 hours to produce. So who is taking lesser hours to produce? Country Y. So country Y has the absolute advantage for food, right? Because this is input data, not output data, right? So food, country Y. Then look at what? Clothing. Who is taking less? Country X is taking 50 hours, country Y is taking 20 hours. They are also country Y, right? But this also is country Y. Remember, I told you absolute advantage. The same country can have the absolute advantage for both the goods. No problem at all. So they are taking 50, country X is taking 50, but country Y is only taking 20. So country Y is better, right? So in absolute advantage terms, right, who has the absolute advantage? For both the goods, it's country Y. Then look at comparative advantage. So when you're looking at comparative advantage, guys, now when you have now for these MCQs, you all can use the shortcut, okay? Remember, our normal equation is foregone divided by gain. So if they have given you input data, you can do the opposite. It's not really foregone divided by gain, the opposite of that. But simply, there is a shortcut. I'm hoping you all know that. So how are you going to find opportunity cost here? Country X takes 20 hours to produce food, 10 hours, sorry, 50 hours to produce clothing. Okay, so do the opposite and see how are you going to find it. Okay, now remember when you're finding opportunity cost here, it's not okay. Tell me the opportunity cost of country X for producing food. Country X for producing food. What is the opportunity cost? What is the opportunity cost? Is it 20 divided by 50, right? Yeah. For food, it's 20 divided by 50. That's how you get the opportunity cost. Okay, so yes, I'll go in this order itself. So you get 0. How much? 0.4, right? So if you look at country Y for producing food, what is their opportunity cost? It's 10 divided by 20, right? 0.5. So if you look at this side of the diagram, right? Country X for clothing, 50 divided by 22.5. Country Y for clothing, 20 divided by 10, right? So 2. So likewise, you have the opportunity cost, right? Down here, these are the short forms that I'm hoping whoever taught you all would have taught you all this. So this is the opportunity cost for these things. Okay, I'll just put it over here, right? Okay, and this is this. So then In that, you all can put. Okay, right. Now compare this. Compare now. It's not about just calculating this, right? So if you take food, right? Country X has an opportunity cost of 0.4 clothes. Right? That is cloth, clothing. If country Y has an opportunity cost of 0.5 clothes. So who has the lesser opportunity cost? So in other words, who has the comparative advantage for food? For wood, for food, country X has, right? Country X has the comparative advantage. So automatically, remember I told you, if one country has the comparative advantage for one good, the other country should have the comparative advantage. Other, if you take clothing, the opportunity cost for country X is 2.5 food, but for country Y, it's only 2 food. So they have the comparative advantage. So then write that down. You don't have to write all these in the exam. You just can do it in your thing soon. So comparative advantage, if you take food, it is whom? It's country X. If you take clothing, it's whom? It's country Y. Okay, right. So based on that case, can you all read and tell me what the answer is? I'm not going to go through each and every answer. Based on the things that we have here, can you tell me which one is the correct one? Okay, so based on the results we have, which one is the correct one? Answer 3. Okay, so most of you are saying answer 3. Okay, let's see answer 3. X has the comparative advantage in food production. Food comparative advantage, country X, fine. Whereas Y has the comparative advantage in clothing. Y clothing. Yes, that looks like. Yeah. Any other answers? Okay, one person is giving me 2. Can't be 2. Y has a comparative advantage in production of food and clothing both. In case one country will not have the comparative advantage of both the goods, right? That will never happen. Okay, so our answer there is the third one, guys. Obviously, other ones are wrong. Huh? So I can go through and see. Okay, so that's question number 36. Then we go into 37. Okay, now again, can you see similar questions? They all what they have done is they have changed the values a little. Okay, so 37. Consider the following hypothetical balance of payment, right? And the balance of payment on a current account shows what? Okay, now I'm just going to show you what to add and minus. Country Y has the comparative advantage for food. Comparative advantage. No, country X. No. So country X, right? Their opportunity cost of producing 1 unit of food is 0.4 units of cloth. Country Y, to produce 1 unit of food, their opportunity cost is 0.5 units of cloth. So country X has the lower opportunity cost. So country X has the absolute advantage for cloth. Sorry, for food. They're giving up 0.4 cloth. Don't confuse this with cloth. Huh? So for food, they have to give up only 0.4 cloth. That's how that comes. Okay. Okay. Right. So in this context, guys, if you're looking at your balance of payment current account, okay, so exports of goods, you add, right? You add this. Imports, you minus. So if you minus this, you then get the balance of the goods account or the trade account balance. Okay. Then net services, you add. Net income, this is your primary income, guys. You add. Net current transfers, you add. Now remember, you're adding a negative value. Actually, you're minus. So how do you get? It's 11,000. Okay, 11,000 minus 13,000. That's your trade account balance. Your trade account balance is how much then? It's a minus 2,000. Then if you take your service account, it's a plus 200. Okay. If you take your net income, that's your net primary income, it's a minus 2,000. You add that minus 2,000. Then if you take your current transfers, it's a minus 100. So you add all of these minus numbers and the plus numbers. How much do we get, guys? As an answer, minus 2,000, minus 4,000, 4,100, 3,900. Yeah, minus 3,900. Yeah, so very simple calculation, guys. There's no rocket science here. you get a minus 3,900. So all what you have to do is simply add and minus and add and minus. So you know the components, and after that it's simply a matter of adding things and deducting things. Yep, no questions, issues. Fine. Okay, right. So moving on to the next one then. Okay. A positive balance on merchandise trade in a country's balance of payment necessarily implies that. Guys, what is merchandise trade? Merchandise trade means your tangible goods and services, right? Your trade account has a positive balance, means it has a surplus, right? Your goods account. So what does that mean? Can you all tell me based on this? It necessarily means the terms of trade index is higher than the previous year. More goods are being exported than being imported. An improvement has occurred in the balance of the current account. The value of import of goods is less than the value of export of goods. Export prices are higher than import. What can you say, guys? A trade account surplus. What can you necessarily say? Think a little. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm getting so many different answers. The only answer I did not get is the first one. What do you all think? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your trade account has a surplus or has a positive balance. What can you say? Okay, how do you get the value of your trade, guys? Right? So the value, okay. So it simply means, right? Your trade account means your exports minus your imports, right? Yes, guys. Merchandise means in trade account, right? So how do you get your exports, right? So it's the price of your exports multiplied by the quantity. So, right, minus how do you get your imports? The price of your imports multiplied by the quantity. So when you get this, you get the value, right? That's how you get your balance of trade. So in this context, for this to be a positive number, right? As terms of trade doesn't really go on because terms of trade only talks about the price. More goods are being exported than being imported. You can't really say that, guys, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that, because when you say more goods, we're only talking of the quantity here, right? So now, yes, maybe export quantity can be large, but what if the price of exports are very low? So then your trade account can be a negative. No? So just by looking at the quantity, you can't say. So more goods here means only the quantity, right? You can't. And can you say that there is an improvement in the current account balance? You can't really say that also, because yes, maybe your merchandise balance, your trade account has a surplus. But what if your service account, net primary account, and your net secondary income account, what if those go on a huge deficit, right? Now you all know the trade account, service, net primary, and net secondary income. So they are saying this one has a surplus. But just because this has a surplus, how can you say your current account has improved? What if these all have become worse? If all of these, the services, the primary income, secondary income, if these have gone worse, then this would also be worse, right? So you can't necessarily say that. For sure, you can't say that there has been an improvement in the current account. That's also wrong, right? Then you end up with answer 4, and okay, answer 5 is again wrong, right? The export prices, just because the price have increased, you can't say that this is this thing. So they're only talking of this side of the story. So you have to comment not on the price, not on the quantity. You have to comment on both the price and quantity. Both the price and quantity means the value of the good, right? So the value of the imports is less than the value of exports. So maybe the value of the imports, the price multiplied by quantity, import value, let's say, is only 1,000. But the export value, let's say, is 2,000, right? So then, yes, you have a positive trade account balance. So value of imports is less than the value of the. So that's how you get that answer. It's a simple question, but a little confusing. If you don't read the thing properly, you can get misled. Are we fine? Yes, 38. Questions, issues, problems? Okay, that's for 38. Then moving on for 39. Okay. If country A has absolute advantage in the production of everything. So country A has the absolute advantage of, let's say, both the goods. Okay. So which of these is correct, right? No trade will take place because country A will have a comparative advantage in everything. Yes or no? Country A, yes, has the absolute advantage of both the goods. But does that mean that country A will have the comparative advantage of both and they will have no trade? No, right? That is wrong. No trade will take place because no country will have the comparative advantage. Can you say that? Just because country A has the absolute advantage both. Now, in our previous example, also one country had the absolute advantage for both the goods, right? Because of that, you can't say they will have no comparative advantage. That's also wrong. Trade will probably take place and all countries will gain. Trade will probably take place, but country A will not gain. Trade will probably take place, but country A will be the only one to gain. What do you all think, guys? 3, 4, 5. Country A has the absolute advantage for everything. Yes, the answer is 3, guys. Just because you have absolute advantage, you can't determine whether you will trade or not. Whether you are trading or not is determined based on comparative advantage. So if you have comparative advantage, then obviously, right, there will be countries that will gain. So you go with answer number 3, right? Because international trade is always based on comparative advantage, not based on absolute advantage. So if it is based on comparative advantage, if they're trading based on comparative advantage, remember there will always be countries who will gain, right? So remember you all calculated something called a mutually beneficial exchange rate. So every country will actually benefit. That's 3 and 4, right? So 39, it's a very easy question, guys. Okay, 39. Okay. Okay. Now again, there is a depreciation thing, right? Same question that was there last year. Now they're testing it a little bit even different way. Okay, question 40. If the nominal exchange rate between the dollar and the rupee changes from rupees 110 to 135, okay, can you all tell me, has the Sri Lankan rupee LKR appreciated or depreciated? 110 became 135. It depreciated, right? And then the US dollar appreciated. Right? That's how it happened. So in that context, okay, let's look at the answers. Rupee depreciated and dollar, right? Rupee appreciated and dollar depreciates. Yes or no? Wrong, right? It's the other way around. Sri Lankan goods will become less expensive to Americans, and imports of Sri Lankan goods to the US will rise. What do you think? Yes or no? Our LKR has depreciated. Now, if you look at a US guy, earlier from $1, if he bought 110 rupee worth of goods, now from $1 he can buy 135 worth of goods. So for him, what has happened? It has become cheaper. So Sri Lankan goods will be less expensive to Americans. Yes, it has become cheaper. That part is correct. So because it is less expensive to the Americans, what will the Americans do? They will import more. So imports of Sri Lankan goods to the US. Hey, this is US importing, or not Sri Lankan importing. Imports of Sri Lankan goods to the US will rise. Yes, that looks right, right? So we'll look at the other answers and see. The next answer is Sri Lankan goods will become more expensive. No, no. If the LKR depreciated, our goods will become less expensive. It will become cheaper. Wrong. Sri Lankan goods will be more expensive. Again, no, it won't be more expensive. Sri Lankan goods will be less expensive. Yes, to the Americans, and imports of Sri Lankan goods to the US will fall. No, the imports will actually increase. It's much more. You end up with answer number 2. This is a very common question that they test in the papers, right? So you all need to know how to work around and get the thing, whether based on whether it's appreciation or depreciation. You all need to know, okay, if it's an appreciation, goods become, your exports become expensive. Imports become cheaper. If it's a depreciation, it works the other way. Exports become cheaper, imports become expensive. Those comes from the very basic of the thing, right? So if you all know that basic, this question is nothing. Okay, so 40 is also done. Okay, 41. Under a flexible exchange rate system, the primary mechanism for dealing with temporary disequilibria in the balance of payment. What do you think? Rigid system of exchange controls currency flow from surplus to deficit units, devaluation or revaluation, depreciation or appreciation, maintaining a tight fiscal policy. Is a flexible exchange rate system. When there is a temporary disequilibrium, what happens? What happens to the exchange rate, guys? Maybe the supply is more than the demand, or the demand is more than the supply. What happens in this thing? In a flexible exchange rate system, when this happens, guys, it's appreciation or depreciation. Simple as that. There is no rocket science that happens, right? So if you a disequilibrium means your demand is more than your supply, or your supply is more than your demand in your currency. So in that context, what can you say? There will be a depreciation or an appreciation of the exchange. Correct. Okay. Simple things, guys. There is no other thing. There is, remember, in a flexible exchange rate system, there is no government intervention. So no rigid controls and no fiscal policies, and you don't do that, right? It's not a managed floating, it's a completely floating exchange, a flexible, purely based on demand and supply. So if there's a disequilibrium means that the demand and supply is not matching. So if the demand and supply does not match, what happens? There will be a depreciation or a appreciation of the exchange rate. Okay, so that's 41. Okay, we're done with that. If they say manage floating, that means there is a government intervention. Now, currently in Sri Lanka, what is happening? Currently in Sri Lanka, when you have a a disequilibrium, what does the government do? They're using their foreign reserves, right? They're using their foreign reserves to either buy currency and create artificial demand, or they're selling off currency and creating an artificial supply, and then they're managing. Now, right now, guys. Now, remember, this is a question that I told the fast track people also, so you all also remember this year, right, there can be a highly probable question on the foreign reserves of Sri Lanka, right? So our foreign reserves have fallen, right? Why have our foreign reserves fallen? Foreign reserves have fallen, right? That means the foreign currency that we have. So you all know, in a managed, now Sri Lanka has a managed floating exchange rate. So Sri Lanka will keep some level of foreign reserves to maintain the exchange rate at a stable level. So if the exchange rate is going to depreciate, they will create an artificial demand for the LKR. If the exchange rate is going to appreciate, they will maybe sometimes supply the LKR, demand for US. So, but what has happened is, right, currently because of COVID and everything, the Sri Lankan rupee has gone down and down and down. But in order to stop it depreciating, what did the central bank do? They sell off the US dollars. They supply US dollars and they buy LKR to create artificial demand for the LKR to keep it stronger. So they're selling off US dollars means they're supplying all of their foreign reserves. So foreign reserves in the country, right, is all going out, right? So foreign reserves means simply think of the US dollars that we have, right? So to create an artificial demand because of COVID, there is no proper trade and all happening. So to create that artificial demand and keep the exchange rate stable, the country is selling off their foreign reserves, right? So foreign reserves is going down. Now, because of that only, guys, they have stopped importing all of this, importing vehicles, importing luxury stuff, right? Importing, let's say, turmeric, fertilizer. They put bans on vehicles and all to make sure that the money doesn't go out, because our money is now, a lot of has gone out and we have a problem there. So that is a whole part of it which you all can get a question on. Right? So we will maybe somewhere in the mock exam series we might discuss it somewhere, but just remember, guys, in case you are not there, just go and maybe, if you do have a teacher who is teaching you all this entire concept, right, you all are going to some class somewhere, no, guys. So if you are not very sure of how this thing works, just tell that teacher to run you through this, the foreign reserve story, because I feel most probably there could be a question connecting to COVID. It will be a hard question also. It will not be that easy. It has not been tested before on the foreign reserves thing. Okay. So if you say this one right now, if you say for a managed floating, you can even have you can't say there is one answer there though. Okay, so it's not, none of these answers are very directly involved with the managed growth. So I will not recommend anything. Okay, just remember the foreign reserve story. It can be important. Okay, so question. Okay, 2012. All correct? Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 MCQ. Done? Yes. No. Yeah, 3 is fixed. That devaluation and appreciation. Okay, then we go into the 2013 A level paper. Okay, again, easy sequencing. The first question always comes from these calculations, but now it's not a comparative advantage or advantage. It's one step ahead on the mutually beneficial exchange rate. But you have to find the comparative advantage for this, right? So here they are saying the table shows the number of goods X and Y, which two countries A and B produce using composite resource units. Okay, first of all, input data or output data. What have they given us? They given us output data, right? Okay. So then they say, assume each country specializes in the product in which it has a competitive advantage. The rate of exchange suitable for one country to gain from trade. Nice. Now you don't have to do all the calculations for this. They're simply asking you all 1x equals how much. So find what is the opportunity cost of good X in country A and in country B. Do that first. In country A, the opportunity cost of producing 1 unit of X is, right, to gain 100X, they have to give up 200Y. So how much is the opportunity cost? It's given up is 200, 200 divided by 100, right? So that is their opportunity cost. So I'll put it over here. Okay, so that's 200 divided by 100. So in their country, it's 2 units of Y. So opportunity cost of producing 1 unit of X is 2 units of Y. Then look at the other country, right? Country B. I'll try to put it here. It's too small. Okay, remember that this has to come over here, right? This one is the opportunity cost of country A for producing good X, the yellow one. Okay, right. Then look at country B. To produce 300Y, they have to give up 400X. Sorry, to produce 300X, they have to give up 400Y. So if you calculate opportunity cost for them, it's 400 divided by 300. How much do we get? We get 1.33 units of Y. So yes, this is more than enough. You don't have to find for X also, right? You don't have to even find for X. Okay, sorry, not for X, for Y, because all the answers talks about only X. If you look at this question now, right, you have this, 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 and this, right? So they are now asking you, okay, now based on this, can you tell me who has the comparative advantage for good X? Opportunity cost for country A is 2 units. Opportunity cost of country B is 1.33 units. Who has the comparative advantage for good X? It's country who? Country B, right? They have the lower opportunity cost, so they have the comparative. So the country that has the comparative advantage, what will this country do? They will export that good or import that good? Will they export X or will they import X? They will export X, right? They will export X. Then what will country A do? They will import X. Okay, they are going to import. So then, if now country X, right? Sorry, country B, in their country itself, for a unit of X, they are getting 1.33 units of Y. So if they want to export it, will they expect more than 1.33 or less than 1.33? Think. Country B, in their country, for a unit of X, they are getting 1.33 units of Y. Now, they want to sell it abroad. So if they want to sell it abroad, right, they will expect how much? They will expect it more than 1.33. No? In their country itself, they can get 1.33. Why will they sell it for less than 1.33 in another country? So they will expect more than 1.33, right? So your mutually beneficial exchange rate, right, has to be greater than 1.33, right? So okay, I'll say your mutually, okay, so greater than 1.3. Now think of the country who is importing it. Country A is the one importing them, right? In their country, for a unit of X, they have to give up 2 units of Y. So if they are to buy it from the other country, from country B, at what price would they be willing to buy it? In their country itself, they are paying 2. So to buy it from the other country, they will expect to buy it from a cheaper than 2, right? Because in their country itself, they can give up 2 units of Y and buy a unit of X. So if they are to buy it from the other country, they will expect it at a less than 2, right? So this country will expect more than, right, for a unit of X, right? For a unit of X, okay, this country will expect more than 1.33 to export. This country will expect to buy it at less than 2. So based on that, the range is between 1.33 and 2, not 1.33, not 2, between that. It has to be greater than 1.33, less than 2. So what do you think is the answer here? Which one of these answers suits this? Greater than 1.33, less than 2. 1x equals how much? Hmm? It's this, right? It's the 1.5 over here. That is right. So, okay, that's how you figure this answer out, right? It's a good question, right? Now these type of questions will come up on your paper. It's simply about finding the mutually beneficial exchange rate. Are you okay? No, I feel you're a little lost. Because I didn't go into very basics, right? On what is a mutual beneficial exchange rate, how to calculate that, what does it mean? No, right? I didn't go into those basics. I just gave you a brief idea. Okay, so on your end, right? I am letting you all know, right? So what you all have to do is first you all need to study the unit. Then you need to attempt the paper, right? Don't come to this session without even studying the unit or without even doing this. The second option will not be right. The second option will not be right because it says 1x equals 1.3. This has to be greater than 1.33. 1.3 is less than 1.33. This is 1.33. So it has to be greater than 1.33, less than 2. Now, 1 is anyway no. 2, you can't because it has to be less than 2. 3 is anyway out of the range. You can't. Okay? So think, guys, work on your this thing, right? In your unit, there will be something called mutually beneficial exchange rate, right? That is the area that you all need to study here. Okay? Go and check. Okay, that's 36. Okay, then we have 37. Okay. A Sri Lankan manufacturing firm exports 10 million worth of tires to a company in the UK. According to the double entry system, which two parts of the balance of payment would be affected by this transaction? Now, it's one of the easiest questions, I think, fast track people. And yeah, first thing, is money going out or money coming in? Sri Lankan manufacturing firm exports things worth 10 million. Are we getting money or are we paying money in Sri Lankan context? We're getting money, right? There is a cash inflow. So if you're getting money, what is the double entry? It's debit, financial account, right? Under reserves, right? Under other reserves, right? I'm showing the whole thing. Huh? Under other reserves, you have something called currency and deposits. That account is debited, right? That's where it goes. Then what are we doing? We are exporting what? We're exporting tires. So where does this now? What is tires? Tires is a physical, tangible good, right? So where is the export going? It goes under credit, current account, where? Your goods account, right? Yeah, it's a physical thing. That's your double entry. So in that context, see which one is the answer. Which one? Exports in the current account. Okay. Capital transfer in the capital account? No. Right? It's not capital transfer. Exports in the current account, incomes in the current account? No. Exports in the current account, yes. Current account, your goods account, your exports. And reserve assets in the financial account, yes. So finance account, other reserves, currency, and deposit. Correct. Liabilities in the financial account? No. You're getting money, no, it's not liability, not claims of non-resident. No. Exports in the current account, yes. Claims of non-residency. Right. So the answer is the third one. Okay, this is a very easy one, guys. Guys, please make sure that you all know your double entry. Because this double entry is very basic, right? They simply it's the debits and the credits that you all need to know. That's 37. Okay, 38. The Department of Statistics of a country wishes to present its final balance of payments account. It has calculated the current account, the capital account, and the financial account. The additional information required to complete the task is, what do you all think? Change in foreign currency reserve, foreign aid, errors and omissions, speculative currency flows, change in portfolio investment. How do you get your overall balance or your final balance? Right, remember, right, in these transactions, there is always errors and omissions, right? So to get your final proper balance, right, simply calculating your what current and capital and financial is not enough, because how easy, it's not easy to what track all the transactions, no, all the foreign transactions, the money going out, money coming in for an entire country, it's not easy. So every single year there are errors, omissions, and all of that. So to get the proper balance, you also have to take into consideration the errors and omissions. So that becomes your answer. Okay, 38. That's a purely theoretical question. Okay, this one. Now, remember I told you a TOT question. A country's terms of trade currently stands at 150. Base year, it was 100. Since 2010, the average price the country has received for its exports increased by 20%. Thus, the average price it has received for its imports would have changed by. We'll go with the equation. TOT equals export price index divided by your import price index. Okay. So here they are saying the terms of trade currently is 150. Okay, 150. Since 2010, the average price the country has received for its exports has increased by 20%. Right? So export price index is 20. Yes or no? The average price it receives for its exports has increased by 20%. Export price index 20. Yes or no? No, right? It has increased by 20%. So you all know the export price index in the base year is 100. So if 100 has increased by 20%, how much should the number be? How much should the number be here, guys? What is our new export price index if it has increased by 20%? Give me an answer. Exactly, it has to be 120. So then they are asking, so it has to get multiplied by 100 also, your final answer, right? Okay. Right. They're asking you what has happened to your import price index. So can you all work around, right? And tell me, I'll just say EPI, import price index, shortened form just, right? Can you all work around and tell me how much is the import price index? Substitute, but move things around. Tell me how much is your import price index? How much is the import price index? 120 divided by 150 multiplied by 100. How much do we get? 80? Right. So our import price index is 80. But that is not our answer. So in our base year, import price index would have been 100. So currently the import price index is 80. So what can you say as a percentage? How much did it fall by? 100 became 80. So they're asking you what has happened to the import prices, right? What can you say? The import price index has increased by 20% or decreased by 20%? 100 has become 80. It has 100 has become 80. It has decreased by 20%, right? The minus 20%. You can't say plus 20%. You all get that question? It's a very easy question, guys. You use the equation, right? You take the numbers in the base year. Remember that these numbers are 100. Currently, this is 150. So I put 150 here, right? They say that the export prices have increased by 20%. So 100, I make it 120, which is increased by 120. And they ask me what has happened to the import price. So I calculate and I found out that import price index is 80. So what does that mean? That means, so in the base year, export price index and import price is the same, because it's 100. TOT is 100 in the base year. So obviously, if TOT is 100, export price index and import price index also has to be 100. Okay. So in that context, if your import price index is 100, means what? It has fallen by how much? It has fallen by 20%. Okay. So simple thing. That's 39. Right. Done. Question number 40. Okay. Okay, now this is an easy one. This is a purchasing power parity. Okay. Assume that a representative basket of goods, right, cost 120 in the United States, and the same basket of goods cost 9,600 in Sri Lanka. It can be deduced from this that, or concluded from this that, saying what? External value of rupee is 25% overvalued. External value of rupee is 20% overvalued. Purchasing power parity is 96, 80, 10. Because how do you find purchasing power parity? For the same units of good, right? Same basket of goods, you find the exchange rate. So $120 worth of a basket is equal to 9,600 in Sri Lanka. So how do you find your purchasing power parity exchange rate? So $1 is equal to how much? It's simply 9,600 divided by 120. How much do we get here? Your purchasing power parity exchange rate. Your purchasing power parity exchange rate is $1 is how much? $1 equals 80. Yes, equals 80. Okay. Okay, that's your purchasing power parity exchange rate. Very simple thing, guys. If you all know the concept of what is purchasing power parity exchange rate, it's simply about finding $1 equals how many rupees. So if $120 is equal to 9,600, then how much is $1 equal? $1 is equal to 8. That's 40. Question number 4. Okay. Right. 41. How do you work with 41? Foreign direct investment in developing economies is likely to result in what? Because of FDI, what do you think will happen? A reduction in local wage levels, a reduction in tax revenue, a reduction in the rate of consumer goods, worsening of net foreign income flows, worsening of capital account and the balance of payment. What do you think happens when there is foreign direct investment? Foreign direct investment in the sense, let's say Coca-Cola is coming and starting a factory in Sri Lanka. Right? Coca-Cola comes and starts a factory in Sri Lanka, right? The local wages will not reduce, guys. Local wages will actually increase, right? Now there is competition, right? They will provide better jobs and all. Okay, so reduction in local wages, no, there'll be an increase in local wages. Reduction in taxes, no, guys. Now, if Coca-Cola comes to Sri Lanka and if they start their factory, now the Sri Lankan government can tax Coca-Cola, right? So there will not be a reduction in the tax revenue, there will be a improvement in the tax revenue. A reduction in the range of consumer goods? No. Now, the consumers, they have more goods to purchase, right? They have what the domestic good, they have the foreign good, they have everything. So there is no reduction in the range of consumer goods, it's an increase. That's also wrong. But then worsening of net foreign income flows. This is the answer. But then why is this the answer? Now, when there is foreign direct investment that comes in, guys, right? The profits, the dividends, the interest has to be sent back to USA, right? Now, there has been a foreign direct investment that came into Sri Lanka, right? So this is the Sri Lankan map, right? So foreign direct investment comes in, right? The FDI. But even though the FDI comes in, right? In return, we have to pay, no? Now we have to pay the US Coca-Cola owner. We have to pay them. So we have to pay them interest. We have to pay them the profit. We have to pay them the dividend. So all of this is what? All of this is primary income. So even though the foreign direct investment is coming in terms of primary income, there is an outflow. So what happens to your net foreign income or net foreign primary income? There is a more outflow there. So it gets worse. You have to now pay more interest, profits, and dividends. So in context of interest, right, profits and dividends. So more money goes out. Is that clear? When foreign direct investments come in. That is why you say there is a worsening of the net foreign income flow. Right? That's what that happens. That is why that is the answer. And then worsening of the capital account, no guys. Right? Capital account is actually not affected now. Now these are affected. Foreign direct investment comes in the financial account. So it's actually financial account is not worsened, becomes better. And again, not the answer. 41 is 4. Okay. Right. Done. Yeah, that's it with that paper. How many correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can we say version of the current account? Yes, you can say version of the current account because primary account comes inside the current account. All correct? Yes, no? Fine. Okay. Then going into, so we'll do 2014 and wrap things up. Guys, we'll do 15 and stuff from the next class. Okay, 2014. Now this question starts with, now this paper, it's the questions are, the order is a little messed up. Huh? So I think the before question is on economic growth. From the middle only they had questions here and there, right? So I have picked the international trade questions, but as far as I remember, the order was a little messed up. Okay, so just we'll do these questions. Okay, starting off with question number 39 in the 2014 paper. Okay, so they're saying the market equilibrium and import supply of a particular good is shown in the following figure. These are very simple things. Huh? According to the figure, the area that shows the additional benefit to the society due to the import supply is that talking about what is the increase in economic surplus. So shall we go with first things? Forget about the import supply. If there was no import supply, A is consumer surplus, right? This is consumer surplus. Which one is producer surplus? B and G. This is producer surplus before. Right? So for there was no import, this was consumer surplus, this was producer surplus. Now after they imported, right? After they decided that they're going to import this, right? There is an import supply curve. Now what happens? The price in the market falls, right? PC becomes PW. What happens to consumer surplus? Consumer surplus now becomes this entire thing, right? Because now the consumer pays a lesser price. So consumer surplus actually, forget about my diagram, it's this entire part, okay? This entire part. Okay, I'll color it like this. Okay. So B, A, B, C, and F becomes consumer surplus. So what happens to produce surplus, guys, after the import? Which area do you all think is producer surplus? According to this graph. It's G, right? This is producer surplus. This area over here is producer surplus. So then in our question, what are they asking? They are asking, what is the additional benefit to the society? What do you all think? Which areas do you all think according to this graph has increased, guys? See the graph, see what is the new part that has come in? Has either become consumer surplus or producer surplus? The additional benefit. Which area? The C and F, right? That has come in newly. Okay. So this part over here is the additional benefit. Earlier they were only getting this much. Now they are getting this additional part also. So because of importing, right? What happens? There is an additional supply that comes. Okay. So which one? We go with C and F. This is our on 2014 is C and F. When they import, what happens to the quantity? So what happens to quantity, guys? Now, when the price is set at this one, right? The demand is at this much units. So let's say 10 units. right? The domestic supply is this much. Let's say domestically they supply 4 units, right? The balance is imported. So when they import, guys, this is the new equilibrium, right? This point where the imported supply curve cuts the domestic demand curve. This is equilibrium. So demand is 10, domestically 4 units are supplied, the balance 6 units are imported. That's how that works. Okay, right, that's 2014. Done. Then we'll go into 2014. Now question 40. Okay, which of the following is not a reason for trade among countries? What do you think? Not a reason for trade among countries. Differences of factor endowment, that is a reason, guys. If you have different factor endowments, that could be a reason, right? What do you think? The others, 1, 2, 3. Okay. This is a reason. We are finding what is not a reason. No? So this cut. How do we find out? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Think. Okay. We'll go from down. Difference in consumer taste and preference, guys. Go and check in your whatever tools that you are studying, reasons for comparative advantage or reasons for international trade. Difference in consumer taste, yes, is a reason. Existence of returns to scale in production, that is a reason, guys. So some countries, they have increasing returns to scale, so they can produce maybe at a lower cost, maybe economies of scale. So because of that, they have the comparative advantage, they might be able to trade. Difference in technological know-how, that is also a reason. But differences in exchange rate is not really a reason for trade, right? It's not a reason for trade. That is not why trade is caused. Trade is caused because of other reasons. Because of trade, yes, exchange rate can change, but exchange rate is not the reason for the trade. You have to get that, right? So which is not a reason for trade is the difference in foreign exchange rate. Okay, that's 40. Then, okay, then there is 43. Okay, same question, different numbers. Okay, I want all of you all, I think this is the last question, or do we have one more question after this? Okay, we have one more question after this. Okay, but never mind, right? So we have time now. I want all of you all to attempt this and give me an answer, guys. Now, this is the 4th time that we are coming across a question like this. Okay, so they have given you the output units of 2 products, that is Sri Lanka and India, and then they're asking you what is the correct statement. So what you have to do, find the absolute advantage, find the comparative advantage, and then based on that, giving your answer. Okay, we'll do it with me. Guys, give me absolute advantage. Tell me which country has the absolute advantage. If you take tea, who can produce more tea? Is output data. So Sri Lanka can produce 100 tea, India can produce only 90 tea. So Sri Lanka. Take garments. Sri Lanka can produce 120 garments, India can produce only 100 garments. So again, Sri Lanka. So absolute advantage for both the goods is with Sri Lanka. How do you find comparative advantage? Okay, so here 120 divided by 100. So here you get 1.2, right? Here 100 divided by 120. How much do we get? 5 divided by 6. You get about 0.83. Okay, so 0.83. Here 100 divided by 90. Goes to 1.1. Here 90 divided by 100, 0.9. Okay, so based on this, now read the graph and see. T, opportunity cost of Sri Lanka is 1.2. Opportunity cost in India is 1.1. Who has the comparative advantage? In other words, who has the lesser opportunity cost? So India for tea, right? India has the comparative advantage for tea. Garments. Sri Lanka has 0.83. India has 0. Remember, if one country has for one, the other country will have for the other one. Okay. So garments is this. Now, based on this, give me your answer. India has the comparative disadvantage in tea. No, they have the comparative advantage in tea. Wrong. Sri Lanka has the comparative advantage in garment. Yes, that's correct. Okay. India has the absolute advantage in tea. No, Sri Lanka has the absolute advantage. both countries have the comparative advantage both the goods? No, guys, that can never happen, right? Both countries can never have the comparative advantage both the goods. India does not have the comparative advantage in both the goods. No. So they have the comparative advantage in one good. No. Okay, so you end up with answer number. Wait, answer number 5. How they worded India does not have the comparative advantage in both goods. India does not have a comparative advantage in both goods. That looks right. Yeah. Answer 5 is also okay. Did I read the question wrong? Correction. Does not have a comparative advantage in both goods. I don't know, right? So India has a comparative advantage at least in one good, right? Right. So you can't say that India does not have the comparative in both the goods. They have the comparative advantage when it comes to tea. That is why you end up with answer number 2. That Sri Lanka has the comparative advantage in garment product. It is a very simple question, right? Remember, this is a question that they test every single year, right? This absolute advantage, comparative advantage. You need to know how to do that basic calculation and then giving your conclusion. In addition to this, only in the last year paper, they have gone one step ahead and asked for the mutually beneficial exchange rate. So know that as well. Common question, right? Now we did it for 4 years. In all 4 years, we had a question similar to this. Okay, and this one then, 44. What are the 5 main sources of foreign exchange earnings of Sri Lanka in the recent years? What do you all have, guys? In other words, where is our money coming from? So we have this, right? We have worker remittances, that is people working abroad. We have our garments, right? Our MAs and Brandix and all of them, right? They're getting money. Then we have money coming in from tourism and stuff, right? Guys, Sri Lanka doesn't have really earnings from computer software, guys. We are not exporting software, right? When did Sri Lanka make computer software? So just cut that off whenever you have computer software there, right? So Sri Lanka is not really earning money from computer software, and we are buying computer software. So then you end up with 2 answers. Inward remittances, yes, guys. But they're asking for the 5 main sources. Inward remittance is the main one, guys, where you get worker remittances, right? Garments, yes. Tourism, yes. Tea and rubber, yes. But then if you look at these, right now, gem, jewelry, tea, coconut, rubber, yes, you get money. But they are not the main ones, guys. Now here they have missed garments. They have missed inward remittances in the 5th one. Those are the main ones where you mostly get money. So that is why you end up with answer number 3, right, as the correct answer and not 5. So 44 is answer number 3. And that's 2014. Done with 2014. I'm guessing I did not miss any question 2014. There was different questions in different places. So 43, 1, 2, 3, 4. All 4 correct? Yes, no? Done. Okay, so that is that. I will not start 2015 today. We'll do 2015 and all of it the next class. But then ideally, do we have a night class today for mock session? Today it will not be a mock session. It will be like a planning session. I think I told last class. I'll inform on the group as well what I will be doing. So okay, so for those who ask me for information about whatever the mock exam series that I will be doing, I've made a small change for what is happening, right? So this is the month 2 of the mock exam series, which we will be starting from today onwards. But today we will not be doing a mock exam. How it will be covered is the mock exam series. There is a 3,000 monthly fee, but that 3,000 will be applicable until you do A levels. I will not be charging anything after that. So for all those who register for this month, this month in a sense, the next 8 sessions, right now is the middle of the month now, but we have not started. So you all will get mock exam number 2, the book, the discussion, everything you all can come. After that, for all those who have registered, I will continue, clearing doubts and doubt clearing sessions and difficult topics and stuff like that. That will happen. So there will not be number of months. You pay 3,000 this month. That 3,000 will be applicable until you do A levels. Unless I do like a special seminar towards the end. But if not for that, it's the same 3,000 that is considered. as the fee for all the doubt clearing sessions to everything. So I think I explained that part in the last class on Saturday, no, on Tuesday, right? So if you're registering, that's what you all have, but I will not be continuing classes or taking more money from you all because I actually have nothing more to teach. So I will only be clearing your doubts and working on difficult areas. So I don't want to increase charge for more months. That's all from me. Fast track is done. Mock exam series is the last month, but then last month will come with the 3000 will be applicable for the entire next 3 months. Okay, right. That's it from me for today. If you all are interested on the mock exam series, you all can maybe drop me a text or can join later. Maybe ask a friend who is already there. Okay, so that's it. I'll see you all probably next Saturday morning with the remaining questions for unit number 9 and 10. Okay, see you guys. Have a good day.